Thank you for listening this morning. Let me summarize yesterday's White House briefing for you. Stay home for 30 days. If you have an essential job, obviously you can't. You have to go to the market to get food. You have to go to the drugstore or the pharmacy to get your drugs. It's fine. You can go get takeout. You can go to restaurants to get takeout. Otherwise, stay home. What's the difference if we do that? Last year, 2019, before the virus, BV, in 2019, you know how many Americans died? Any guess? Anyone thinking out there? Oh, I don't know. And you're making a guess. 2,813,503 Americans died in 2019. That's according to the National Center for Health Statistics, which is part of the CDC. 2,000,008. If we don't do this, it could double, and and perhaps more, but at least 2 million people would die. If we do this, we'll add between 100,000 and 250,000 deaths. So we'll go to 3 million from 2.8 million. That will be hard. It will be catastrophic for the families involved. It will not be catastrophic for the country, and the economy will rebound. So we need people to stay home for 30 days. It's April 1st. No April Fool jokes today. I've done some amazing ones in the past, but it's in the age of the virus. So just trying to give you the stats. Now, over at the Financial Times, you should know that in 35 countries in Europe, there are more than 100 cases. There are 860,455 cases worldwide. There are 42,353 deaths worldwide. The new death tolls are rising in almost every country. China, they are not rising, but we don't trust China's statistics. Greece, for whatever reason, chaotic, crazy Greece, very low number of cases, very low spread. Go figure. Iraq, our soldiers there are pretty safe. Very low number of cases, very low spread. Go figure, maybe they're not testing. But what matters the single most, probably the most important thing, and we've got it now, is a antibody test. Earlier today, I posted over at my Twitter site, and I really encourage you. I'm trying to be positive, assure, inform, encourage on Twitter as well as on the radio that there are two kinds of tests. An antigen test, which detects the presence or the absence in the body of the coronavirus, which causes COVID-19. An antibody test is the second kind, which just tells you whether or not someone has had the COVID-19 in the past. Antibody tests are being prioritized by the government, including in Europe and the UK and Germany and here, because they are essential to informing individuals whether they can return to mixing safely in society without passing on or picking up the infection. So it's kind of like a get-out-of-jail-free card. But we're just ramping that up, and the good news is that we're getting pretty good at that. We're going to roll this stuff out across the United States. Now, yesterday, there was quite an exchange between President Trump and Jim Acosta. Unusual because it was perfectly professional and calm. No grandstanding, no anger, no nothing. Jim was saying, did you do anything wrong? Could we have been ahead of where we are? Followed up by another question by I don't know who. Were you quoting my interview with McConnell yesterday, Leader McConnell, saying that impeachment slowed down the response of the government? The president said, of course impeachment diverted me. Of course. I was impeached. Of course it took up some time. But then Dr. Birx got up and said, and I think this is important for everyone to understand, we don't know if we could have done any better, and we'll never know because we don't know when it got here. And until it got here, we weren't going to do this thing we're doing right now because it's expensive. It's like it's buying the Lamborghini of public health that nobody buys until you have to do it. Nobody in the world does this until you have to do it. And we had to do it. So until we saw people turning up sick in large numbers like in Italy, nobody's at fault. And we did not lose time. We may not have been paying attention to the threat as much collectively. We were on this show. I put this show up against any other media outlet in the United States. We are the equal of any other media outlet in the United States in covering this from the moment it appeared, just like Tom Cotton. I don't trust the PRC, and neither does Tom Cotton. I know the history of SARS, MERS, H1N1 because I was a public health board member for 17 years when I lived on the West Coast. So I've read The Great Influenza. Got a call from a reporter yesterday asking me for historic parallels. And good reporter. We'll see what she writes when the story comes out. And I said, The Great Influenza is the book everyone needs to read. And it tells you exactly what not to do because Woodrow Wilson was the worst president ever in public health terms. So we have the worst president ever. They were looking for historical comparisons, and I know this pretty well, and I explained this audience is totally up to speed because, except for my new affiliate down on Bristol, Virginia, and Kingsport, Tennessee, and the Tri-City areas, 92.9, welcome. But I have been intent on getting you ready. Now, what I do want to do is play for you a little bit of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who, as the world falls into crisis, his profile will increase. The White House briefings are focused on the United States. Secretary Pompeo's briefings are focused on the world. Here is cut number 7 at the State Department yesterday, Secretary of State Pompeo.
We've now made available a total of number $274 million in funding to as many as 64 countries. That money will go to some of the world's most at-risk peoples. You can go to state.gov to find a fact sheet. We'll talk about what we're doing country by country. It'll give the breakdown. We'll put that up at the end of last week. We've been at this a long time. We know how to help people around the world. Since 2009, American taxpayers have generously funded more than $100 billion in health assistance and nearly $70 billion in humanitarian assistance. That's billion with a B. But our help is much more than money. The CDC has 6 staffers on the ground working with Namibia's health ministry. The FDA, as an example, is co-chairing a virtual international conference on developing a COVID-19 vaccine. Americans from all across the Trump administration are working diligently to put this crisis back in the box. Another example, we're working constantly with NGOs to deliver medicines, medical supplies, and food to those in need in Syria, including in regime-held areas. This is a humanitarian crisis. 2, we'll continue helping UN agencies and NGOs build more water, sanitation, and health facilities in camps and informal IDP settings all across northern Syria to help prevent the spread of the virus in that difficult place.
He went on to say this about what we've got. Cut number 8.
As of today, we've repatriated over 26 or 27,000 U.S. citizens from more than 50 countries. The stories of our team's heart and character and commitment to excellence are truly amazing. Let me give you just a couple of examples. In Bhutan, no easy place to get to. An American was critically ill from the virus, intubated on a ventilator, and frankly expected to die in a country located in one of the most remote corners of the world. But we came to the rescue. Our team arranged a biocontainment transport from Bhutan to an intensive care unit in Baltimore, Maryland, a distance of nearly 8,000 miles. To fly through Kathmandu, there's about 12 pilots that can make that flight. It was one of the most complex medical evacuations in history.
That is Mike Pompeo. I hope every morning the Secretary of State does the state of the world vis-a-vis COVID, and every afternoon the President and the Vice President, Drs. Birx and Fauci, do the state of the virus in the United States. That's good information flow. That's what we need. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.